So my talk, I titled it Soaring into Spring by Releasing the Fall, Releasing What's Weighing You Down. And this applies to everybody, but I'm really going to focus my talk on specifically applying it to heart-centered professionals, because those tend to be the people that I work with and I can best serve. And, you know, so when I think of heart-centered professionals and how I've been able to serve them, it's what I notice comes up a lot is they don't always see themselves so clearly. And if there's anything that I say today that resonates with you, then yes, please continue to type in the chat, because I would love to know how you are receiving this message. That these people that are so heart-centered, they're givers, they are helpers, they tend to take on a lot at times because they really want to help, they want to fill in the gaps, they see a need and they say, hey, I can rise to that challenge. I can give in that place. And yet there starts to become this momentum where they're giving. There's an imbalance with the degree that they receive, which starts to get in the way of how you see yourself and can also impact the degree to which you allow yourself to confidently stand in your power and really own the uniqueness of who you are and who you came here to be. So I'm going to talk about this in relation to heart-centered professionals. And I would love to know, do you resonate with that term heart-centered? You know, maybe you don't consider yourself a heart-centered professional, but just heart-centered in general. I love that Brigitte was talking about parents and moms in particular, because this really applies to them as well. And so, because I can definitely relate to it myself. So if you can relate to it, then you may find yourself having different experiences in life where you're like, okay, I'm giving and giving and giving, but when is someone going to give to me, right? Or maybe you are sharing love and appreciation for other people and expecting at some point that you are going to receive that same type of love and appreciation, maybe in the same form. Or maybe in the context of a workplace, you may find that you volunteer to work a little later, to maybe take some work home. Or maybe, oh my goodness, you literally find yourself in the middle of the night, waking up, checking your phone, and responding to work emails. Have you ever done that? I'm going to go ahead and say right now, that has been me before. And here's what many heart-centered people find, is that at some point, enough is enough. And something's got to shift because there's an imbalance, and you recognize that you're not quite being compensated the same way. So if you take nothing away from my portion of today's presentation, it's that I want you to know that you deserve to soar as high as you want to go. And I hope that you will find whatever it is that you are looking for, or whatever is going to best support you in being able to confidently release whatever's in your way, so that you can experience that freedom of being able to see yourself more clearly and make shifts in your world so that you can start to shift that imbalance and get it back into more of a balanced state. So we're going to talk about moving forward. We're going to talk about building up that momentum in the direction that you want to go so you can soar. And I see this as there are two approaches to it. So number one, you could actively raise your vibration. So doing things like, focusing on gratitude, by deliberately shifting into a more positive mindset with your self-talk. Maybe you do a 68-second process if you're familiar with that. Or maybe you spend time doing things that naturally elevate and raise your vibration. Another approach is to actually release what you're already carrying around. Drop those oars so that you can actually just glide forward and start to soar in a more ease-filled manner. So an example of this might be a bike rider. A bike rider could certainly pedal faster to go faster, or they could choose to wear lighter clothing, right? Maybe they go so far as to like shave their legs and their arms, right? So like the little hairs aren't weighing them down, and wear an aerodynamic helmet so they can just soar through. Well, there are three key elements that I want to share with you on this topic today. And I'm really pulling from an experience from my past that came up for me. And I thought, oh, this is fun. It's fun for me. I hope you find it fun. So I've always been a very, very career-oriented person. Ever since I was in middle school, I've wanted to have so many different professions. And I literally remember being in 7th grade, writing this, not typing. I literally wrote down all these different professions I wanted to have. And one of them was being a dental receptionist. So I want to take you back 20 years. 20 years ago, I was a dental receptionist, and I went to school to become a registered dental assistant. And one of the things that they taught us is about PPE. And I would love to know, is anybody else familiar with PPE? If you've been in the medical or health industry, you've probably come across this, or any sort of maybe manual labor even. But PPE stands for personal protective equipment. And so it's really any barrier that's going to prevent you from, saliva splatter from getting on you, or chemicals, getting into your eyes, or, God forbid it goes to your mouth or something like that, right? So you put things on like goggles, or you wear a mask, you wear gloves, maybe have an apron or some sort of coat that you wear. But we also can go through life taking this same approach with anything else that we deem scary or unsafe to be around, placing some form of barrier between us and whatever may be the offending person or situation, so that we are protected and don't get hurt. But here's the interesting thing. The more that we do this, and may not even realize that you're doing it, you may eventually come to a place where you realize you've done such a great job protecting yourself, you're now hidden. Not only can other people not see you, but maybe you realize, oh my goodness, who am I? Who are you? And it can be a very confusing state to be in. I've had a few of these experiences in my life. And so I just can relate to you if you've had this as well. And thank you. I'm seeing some of your comments here. Good. So I want to share with you a modern twist on the PPE. Rather than putting something in front of you to protect you, keep you separate from everything, rather stepping into a space of knowing that you are safe and protected as you are, so that you can be free and actually use certain tools to shift how you are presenting yourself and how other people are receiving you. And so my modern twist on PPE is perspective, physical action, and emotional energy release. I'm just sharing those all with you now, and I'm going to repeat them as we go. But perspective, physical action, and emotional energy release. So when we get around this time of year, springtime, we often hear the phrase spring cleaning. And, we tend to apply that to our homes and our physical space, but that's also something that's really good for us to do internally. And so as we look at perspective, our perspectives can completely inform our experiences of a situation. We can, for instance, we can keep giving and giving and giving, over giving to someone and hope that someone starts to give back to us. Or we can realize, you can realize that you are someone. And you can start to give to yourself whatever it is that you may be perceiving that you are not receiving. So everything starts from the inside out. Again, going back to heart center professionals, the people that I tend to work with, my clients are amazing. My clients are amazing, powerful, heart-centered, purpose-driven, love-filled, love-giving, bright lights who don't seem to know that they're amazing, powerful, bright lights, because their life has been dimmed. They're carrying around too much with them. They can't fully see it. Have you ever, I'm going to give you an example of this. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation with someone where someone's just looking at you and like in awe of who you are and your gifts and your talents, and they're sharing this with you, and they can see you so clearly. And your response is some form of a, I guess, maybe, thanks, right? So there might be a level of not being able to receive it, but maybe you also really just, you're not quite sure if you believe it, if you get what they're saying. Just because you're having a hard time seeing your own light does not mean that your light has been snuffed out. It doesn't mean that it's not there. It just means you're having a harder time seeing it because something's in the way. And so what if you don't even know that something is in the way and you're not fully seeing your light because you're so used to that? That's become your norm. The world around you, around each of us, is a reflection. It's a mirrored reflection of us. And I don't mean the world at large. I mean literally your world. What's in your environment? What are you experiencing? You could have two people seeing the same thing, but having two completely different experiences. Our limiting beliefs often tend to get in the way of being able to see a different perspective of our situation, of life. And limiting beliefs don't just come from what we've observed, what we've observed and others have taught us. Sometimes they simply come from what we start telling ourselves. So for instance, going back to that example, someone's like showering you with compliments and you're like, okay, that person doesn't really know what they're talking about, right? But maybe they do. But you start having this inner dialogue where it's preventing you from being able to go beyond and start to embrace more. So the thing about shifting perspectives, about releasing our limiting beliefs, is that it allows us to have more choices, be able to see things in a different way. And one of the best ways that we can start to shift perspective, something so simple and yet so worthy of being reminded, is you can start to ask more questions. Rather than letting that being your stopping point of, oh, I don't really believe them. Okay, next, I'm going to move on to something else. Ask more questions. So I'm going to give you some examples and feel free to write these down because these can be applied to any situation really in life. So question number one, what if there's another way to view this situation? What if? What if? Do you notice just by posing what if, it opens doors to other possibilities? Here's another one. What am I willing to shift within me to receive a different life experience? If you don't like what you're receiving, if you're like, why am I always taking all this work? Why do they keep giving it all to me? What might you be willing to shift so that, hey, maybe you actually don't have to, right? You can make a different decision there. And what would you be willing to shift so that you can start to experience that a little differently? Here's my favorite question. What can I learn from this? What can I learn from this? Oh, there's so much in that. And so I'm actually not going to go any further with that one because we can go so deep with that one. But those are just a few questions you can use to start to shift perspective. And I love sharing books that have been really helpful for me. So I'm going to share a book with you that came to me at a time when it was imperative that I shift my perspective. 17 years ago, my dad died. I was the last person to see him alive. And I was filled with so much rage and sadness and anger. I knew that something was had to shift or I was going to implode. And I don't know how, but this book found its way to me. It's called The Little Soul in the Sun by Neil Donald Walsh. And so even though I'm sharing that this came to me at a time when I was experiencing death, it can be applied to any life experience. And it's really fantastic also. I'd love to know, Joanna, if you've read this book because it is fantastic for difficult relationships as well. So, okay, so shifting perspective is the first step to releasing what's blocking you or weighing you down. Something that doesn't require anybody else, but something you can just start to do for yourself. And now I'm going to move into the second element in my modern twist into PPE, and that is physical action. And this one's pretty obvious here. So everything is energy, including the physical objects in our space. So yes, I am referring to decluttering. Have you ever noticed how much lighter and freer and happier you feel when you clean your home? You put stuff away, right? When there's no longer stuff on the floor and it's put wherever it belongs. But think about if we never take time to do those things, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes things stay places and we never get around to it, right? And if we never get around to it, we don't even realize how the things in our physical space can be impacting our energy. And it's a form of taking on more energy. Stuff that's weighing us down in our physical environment. It's interesting. So when I think about this, I go back to when I was about 12, 13 years old. I had moved to a new state, and my best friend from my hometown, she came to visit me, and her first time seeing our kitchen, I remember she said something about it being so cluttered. And I was like, what? What does she mean? Like, the kitchen was clean. The dishes were done. But I didn't understand what she meant. But she was coming in, seeing the environment with completely fresh eyes, a new perspective. And I just couldn't see it at the time, you know? We had all these trinkets on the windowsill. We had containers up against the wall there. And it just was challenging to see it because I was so used to seeing the same thing over and over and over. I had a client who once came to me wanting to work on organizing her home. And so it was interesting. This was the first time I had someone who was like, oh, okay. Usually, you know, a lot of the stuff that I do with clients has to do with confidence and releasing emotions and shifting things like that. But she wanted to focus on her home. So, okay, fine. Well, it never fails. You come into a session with the intention of one thing. Turned out within a few sessions, she shared the abuse that she experienced as a child and how it was still impacting her present day. So the more that we then began to explore that and release and shift what was going on there, lo and behold, her home started to become more organized, cleaner, easier for her to be around. And so the stuff that we keep in our physical space can become an energetic barrier between us and how we view the world around us. We may buy more things, buy more food, hold on to things for sentimental value, but at what expense? Could it be at the expense of opening up space in our lives for new people and experiences, new love to flow in? I have another book I want to share with you. So this next book is, this is such a good book. This next book is The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. And the reason why I'm sharing it now is because it's a very thin book, by the way, written in like the 1920s. But one of the things she talks about in here is the law of use. And seriously, it's like a blip in the whole book, but I've remembered it for like the last 15 years. She talks about the law of use. And basically, the things that you have, either use it or get rid of it. And what I thought was really cool too, when I was looking back at this too, she talks about the law of use in the chapter on love, where she also references money. And as she's talking about the law of use and money and love, she has this quote in there that I want to share with you. We must always be kept, well, she's talking about these three items, love, money, and things. They must always be kept in circulation, never hoarded or saved. And can you see how, because when you keep them in circulation, you're able to be in that flow, You're not hoarding for fear of, I'm never going to get any more, right? You're in that flow. And so knowing, hey, okay, I had these objects in my home, they served a purpose at one time, but it's now time for me to, they served a purpose. So it's okay. I'm safe and I can now release them. I can now give them to someone else. Maybe you donate them, maybe you toss them, maybe you sell them. So there are tons of ways to approach decluttering your home. I want to provide you with one way that I think is incredibly simple. And I'm going to pull this from a story. So a few months ago, those I'm connected with on social media may have seen my post about this, but a couple months ago, I was like, you know what? I'm ready for another decluttering. And I set my sights on, I want to declutter and release 127 items from my home. I won't get into the story about why I came up with, had that number, okay? But that was my number and I was committed to it. So I did this on a Sunday afternoon. I started in my bedroom, and the more you start to do and you feel how good it feels to release, I built up momentum. So the next thing I knew, I found myself in my living room. And of course I was keeping track because I wanted to make sure I reached that 127. And by the time I was done, I had released 208 things. Not only did it feel good, but yes, most definitely, the following week, new opportunities and just new rewarding experiences started flowing in that I did not know were going to flow in as soon as the following week. So I want to pose to you, it's good to have, at least a few times a year to take time to declutter and release what's in your space. So I would love to challenge you, if you're up for it, to right now choose a number. In your next decluttering, how many things would you like to get rid of? And challenge yourself to choose a number that might seem a little too big, because you'll probably find that actually it's really easy to reach that big number. So choose a number and then set a date. Set a date for when you're going to do it. And then notice what flows in after you do it. And if you're willing to go ahead and set that date right now and choose that number, then I encourage you to go ahead and put it in the chat. Let us know so we can support you. And then if we're all connected, of course, in the Soul Speakers group, we can celebrate you when you share with us all the stuff that flowed back in after you released, your number of items. So I'm now going to move into my last element of my twist on PPE. And that is the E, which stands for emotional energy release. So as we already acknowledged, everything is energy, including the physical items, as well as the perspectives that we choose to have. And that also includes our emotions. We all experience challenging relationships, like Joanna talked about, challenging situations and things in life that upset us or hurt us. And so I just want to take a quick moment and have you close your eyes. We're not going to spend too much time on this, but just go ahead and close your eyes for a moment and think back to the last time you felt hurt by someone. And I want you to even notice, when you think of the last time, was that a recent time, or was it possibly maybe someone from maybe 5 years ago? Is there a situation in your life that maybe when you think about it, you still find yourself ruminating about it? And how do you feel when you think about that? Is it light? Is it intense? And I just want you to notice, and then I want you to go ahead and open your eyes, because we're going to stop there. And yes, we are going to shift that energy by the end of my talk. So, okay, so that's energy. Whatever came up for you, and you may have all experienced varying degrees of whatever came up for you. And I want to use Joanna's phrase, don't make yourself wrong for whatever came up for you, and to whatever degree you may have had an emotional charge about that situation, okay? We all experience these things, but this is important because energy that we hold on to manifests itself in other ways. So that's why it's important to take inventory of what am I holding on to emotionally, because inside your body somewhere, we may think that it's gone away, it's sitting idly, it's not doing anything, but at some point it may get triggered, it may come up and do something to us, and we don't even need to enter into any more of that. So I'm going to stop that with that there. But so now let's move on to, how do you get rid of that? Okay, well, there's lots of things you can do, but one that's talked about a lot, and I know has already come up today, because it's worth looking at, is it forgiveness. You've probably heard many times that forgiveness isn't for the other person, it's for you. And you maybe even have an awareness that, you'd like to forgive someone, but gosh, it's challenging to get to that place, to really be able to release it, right? Like, I think we all know what that feels like. So how do you even start to get to that place where you can say, okay, I'm willing to consider forgiving this person and looking at the situation in a different way? Well, you could cycle right back around to shifting your perspective on the concept of forgiveness and simply asking yourself, what can I learn from this situation? And if you've already been able to learn from that situation, we are going to go further. But if you're at that stage, then just sit with that. Then just sit with that question alone. And if you receive an answer immediately, awesome. But if you don't, then just sit with it. The answer will come to you when you pose the question. It might be tomorrow or so, but just pose that question. So let's say you've already been able to determine, what can I learn from this situation? Well, the next step is to take it further and start to see how that lesson is actually a gift, and it's for you. This is one of the ways that the universe works for us in our favor. And see if you can get to the place where you actually can be grateful and have gratitude for not only the lesson, but maybe the person who came into your life, to be that person to help teach you that lesson. This book is another fantastic book for just these types of situations and being able to view each other in different ways. I want to share that in early 2018, I had a situation where I was driving. I was on a 3-hour drive to an event, and I decided I wanted to set an intention, just in general. What are some things I want to manifest? And I set an intention of wanting to manifest a really awesome conversation with someone. I didn't know who this person was going to be, but I knew what I wanted to get out of the conversation. And I was like, I'm really looking for that right person to have this conversation. And I then proceeded to go, okay, what else can I do on this 3-hour drive? Okay, I want to spend more time forgiving some people in my past. And this was a new thing for me, really taking an active role and saying, I want to spend time forgiving people, that have been hurt by in the past. So I did just what I shared with you. What did I learn from this? What's the gratitude? And then it even got to the space of being able to feel love and appreciation for them. And I just allowed myself to be immersed in that and feel that. It was amazing to me. When I got to that conference, within 2 hours, the very first person I met, and I ended up having a 2-hour conversation with them, and it was the exact type of conversation I was looking for. I'd never met that person before. I never saw any of this coming. So my point is, when we choose to really just allow ourselves to forgive and release, open up that space in us, that's when more can flow in. And it's a gift you give yourself. So I want to be mindful of time here. And I want to go ahead and we are getting right to the end. So this is good. I want to say that regardless of whether the person you need to forgive is someone else or possibly even yourself, we all come from love. Love is your birthright. And this has nothing to do with your parents and whether or not they were actually in love when you were conceived. This has everything to do with simply the fact that you were here. You were born. You exist as a spiritual being in human form. There's so much love for you. There's so much love for you. So I do want to take a few moments, and anything that may have come up previously when you recalled someone that you may have been hurt by or frustrated by, if you would go ahead and close your eyes, I want to walk you through an exercise here. And I want you to think about a time when you can recall it raining really hard outside. So hard you couldn't believe. You were just mesmerized by how much it was pouring down. More and more rain just kept coming down. And I want you to see these huge water droplets and take a closer look. Look at them closely. And you notice that, oh my goodness, they actually look like hearts. I want you to see that. Can you see these water droplets that look like hearts? These energetic bursts of love that are flowing down from the universe. And I want you to go ahead and not only observe this situation, but I want you to step into this rainstorm of love, this rainstorm of hearts coming down. As hard as it's raining, these hearts are soft and lovely. And every time they kiss your skin, you feel another moment of connection back to you, back to the truth that this love has always been there and is so ready to immerse you in all of its love for you. Back to the support that has always existed for you. And this love kiss radiates all throughout your body. And as it continues to pour down, you are now drenched in this love. And this love that these hearts represent, and they have seeped into your body. Not only have they flowed down over your body, but they have now been flowing down through the top of your head, even as you allow yourself to just surrender and to be in the flow of this love. And as you are in this space, allow it to wash out any areas within you where you may still be holding on to an energy you no longer wish to carry. And I don't want you to spend too much time even thinking about what area of your body or what person or situation, but just set the intention that any energy you wish to release, just allow it to be washed away. And you see this lower vibrational energy that served such a purpose. It gave you lessons, these gifts that were challenging, but they gave you gifts. And I want you to see these gifts now washing out. And as they are being washed out of your body, they are being replaced by an abundance of love energy that have been flowing to you and now through you, within you. And as we're in this space, notice the tension that you once may have held became neutralized, dismantled, disintegrated, and it's been absorbed back into the ether. And because you have done such a fantastic job, being so courageous, willing to look at life with a new perspective, release what you've been carrying around with you, allowing yourself to acknowledge you are safe and the universe has so much love and support they want to give to you. Take a deep breath in to absorb this love. Allow it in even deeper into your cells, your lungs, and every nook and cranny in your body. And take one more moment to send appreciation to the universe for giving to you what was always yours and reminding you of this truth. And lastly, say to yourself, I am loved. I am loved. I am loved. And when you're ready, go ahead and come back and open your eyes. And know that you have just done a fantastic job of flushing out what no longer serves you and essentially saying a massive yes to yourself. And I know some of you may still be coming out of it, so just be wherever you are. But I want to go ahead and wrap up here. I'm 1 minute over my time. I just want to say that, to summarize here, you do not deserve a life. You do not deserve to live a life where you are held prisoner by limiting beliefs, physical surroundings or environment that does not support you anymore, or any lower vibrational emotions or energy that have worn out their welcome. Releasing what's blocking you from seeing yourself and your life more clearly can be done by shifting the 3 things that we talked about in my modern twist on personal protective equipment: shifting your perspective, taking physical action, and emotional energy release. And the power is all yours.